Hi, I'm Catherine Ryan Howard, the author of Runtime, my latest book, which is out now. It's set on the set of a horror movie that's filming in the wilds of West Cork, and weird things start to happen when the events in the script begin to happen on the set, and the lead actress worries that the real horror lies off the page. So I got the idea for Runtime from my brother, who a few years ago was in an Irish independent horror movie called Beyond the Woods. And one of the things he told me about being on set was that they had to go to the local Garda station and say, look, if someone calls you at 4 a.m. and says, I can hear screams coming from the woods, no one's getting murdered, it's just us filming. And I thought, well, what if it was someone getting murdered? I tend to plot in advance. It used to involve post-its, but now we're trying to save the planet, so we use an Excel spreadsheet that will be needlessly color-coded, because if you're color-coding a spreadsheet, you don't have to be writing yet, I find. So never met a procrastination activity I didn't love. And there's also a lot of coffee and Netflix, guilt watching Netflix and coffee, and eventually in some sort of caffeine-induced fever dream, right up at the deadline always, we somehow get to the end. I've always wanted to be a writer, so famously I work with a picture on my desk of me on Christmas morning 1989. We won't say how old I was because people will do the maths, but I was quite young. And I'm tapping away on the typewriter that Santa brought me for Christmas. So always wanted to do it, always dreamed of this ever since I found out this was the thing that you could write for a living. And the genre I love is crime and thriller ever since. I think I followed a very similar stepping stone to many authors of my generation, which was Nancy Drew, point horror, Christopher Pike, and then when I was 12, my friend stole her brother's Patricia Cornwell paperbacks and lent them to me, and I was reading them under the duvet with a torch because I was past my bedtime and not supposed to be reading Patricia Cornwell novels. And I think that started a love for this genre. So ultimately, when it came to write, it had to be in the genre that I love myself. Runtime is very different to my other books. I describe it as my fun book, which I know is a bit weird for a thriller, but I really hope that readers will enjoy it. There's a bit of humour in there. There's lots of puzzles to work out. It's quite meta and self-referential, but there are some really creepy bits as well. So I would just hope that any reader who picks up the book has a good time reading Runtime. See what I did there? I've published a book every year for the last 6 years, which may seem like a lot, but writing is my full-time job and it's also my dream job, so I love to do it. I get my ideas mainly from real life, so I find usually, luckily and conveniently, that when I'm coming to the end of a previous book, I'll read an article or I'll hear something on a podcast, or sometimes I'll even just see an image and the idea for the next book will pop into my head. As long as that keeps happening, great, and I try not to worry about the fact that one day it might not. For now, it's all good. As will come as no surprise to anyone who follows me on social media, my favourite book of all time, and I make no apologies for it, is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I absolutely adore it. I tried to read it for the first time this summer. The movie came out when I was 11, and I have reread it every single year since. If you think it's just about dinosaurs, it's not. Please go read the book. I just think it's the greatest adventure, and every time I read it, I cannot believe that someone took blank pages and made that out of it. My favourite author of all time is Michael Connelly, who created the detective Harry Bosch. I found randomly a book of his in a bargain bookshop when I was 16, fell totally in love with it, and I have read his new book every year since on the day it comes out, and including when I've been in foreign countries and it's been quite the job to track down a copy. Harry Bosch to me is a real person that I just get to check in with once a year. So I'd have to say my favourite author is Michael Connelly. The last book that made me cry was Notes on an Execution by Dania Kafka. It's the story of a killer on death row who's counting down the hours to his execution, but we see his entire life and how he got there through the eyes of the women in it. It is an absolute masterpiece, and I wish I hadn't read it while I was trying to write my own book. So I'm a massive Lego fan. I blame lockdown because that's when it started. I started with one bookshop and now I have an entire street with every possible business my Lego people could need. I have not been to the new store because it opened on the day that Runtime came out and I had my launch party, and alas, I couldn't do both. And I'm waiting for the crowds to kind of calm down before I go, but I will go and, you know, get more stuff from my Lego street, hopefully.